questions. I'm going to hit record. And so then we can also archive these. If you want to catch one that you weren't able to attend live, then we can do that. And I'm also offering these so that you have opportunity to ask individual questions. My own appointment times are really limited, so this way I can make sure I can get to all something like 183 faculty that we have to help out this fall. So thank you so much for joining us.
Is it okay to take these out of order? Like,
yeah, you could totally take it out of order.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. You can just jump around.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, as you want to. Yeah, they're meant to kind of stand alone. And because some people will have, you know, some sections that they want to focus on, and others they can just kind of clean up themselves. And yeah, that's the whole idea. We're going to be using chat a little bit today. So right now that I'm sharing screen, your chat's actually probably not showing at the bottom. It's probably at the top of your screen. But if you would just take a moment, if you could just put your name and your discipline in there, say hello. It also helps me keep a record of who's attended. So if you could just go into chat. If it's not showing up, then look for the 3 dots more, and then chat should be there as well. And we'll just take a moment to say hello to each other. Great. Oh, yeah, everybody's walking in at the same time. Welcome everybody as you're coming in. We're just in the chat, we're just putting our names. You put your name, department, say hello, and that way I have a record of your attendance for today. And Kalpana wrote hello. Thank you. Very good. All right. So I think we had about 3 people drop in here. So if you're just hooking up to the audio, if you would just take a second in the chat, would you just let us know you're here, say hello, your department, and we're happy to have you. Oh, more people. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on from the screen, but Ralph, as you come in here, if you could just go to the chat and say hello to us, that way we have a record that you were here and you can get your Flex credit. And today, obviously, we were talking about Section A. Section A covers content presentation. And there's really 4 parts to Section A, so we'll kind of look at it in these kind of 4 clumps. The first 3 really talk about unit objectives, and that's usually pretty straightforward for folks. The second part is a kind of a hodgepodge of things, and mostly it's talking about how we are using Canvas to present our content to students. The third part is learner support and how we're communicating, the communication in the course. And instructional support is institutional support is the last one, and these are sort of the policies, things we kind of just have to check off. And so then so that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at examples of courses that were aligned with the CVC OEI rubric. And we actually have maybe 3 from our college that are just like aligned. They just did their final revision. So you guys, if you are getting yourselves aligned, will be probably among the very, very first ones that we'll have. These are ones that have been given to us from the CVC that we'll take a look at today. And then you will have ample time to ask your individual questions. We'll make sure everybody gets a chance to share and comment and ask away. That's what we're here for. Okay. So if you've never used the annotation in Zoom before, and if this is too much for you, just ignore it. You can just listen to the webinar and participate with your questions. But if you would kind of give me an idea of where you are in the sense of like, 0 alignment would be, you know, you've got nothing that's aligned at all with Section A. 10 is you're perfectly aligned, which you probably don't want to be in the workshop, but you're welcome to be here. The way you do this, if you go up to the view options at the top, or it'll be 3 dots. It just depends how your setup is. And then you're going to look for the annotate option there. And then you just select the stamp option, or anything really. If you just want to draw, that's fine too. And you can select one of those stamps and kind of, yeah, tell me where you are on that line there. That helps me know.
Can't do it, you know that.
That's
So,
fine, Mary. You can just tell us.
I'm a 0.
You're a 0. Okay. Well, welcome. You're in the right place.
Yay.
Yay. Good for you, Mary. You're fully owning it. Okay. Good. So somewhere that's good. Like maybe 6s, 7s, 8s in there. That's great. Okay. Fantastic. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I got to clear our screen here. Okay, so then I cheated and looked at who signed up for the thing today. And if you have a particular section of the rubric, so like if you're looking at maybe A6 is a problem for you, or A8, or there's a particular one you want to make sure that we definitely cover. We're going to try to cover all of them today, but go ahead by your name if you would. Again, you just use the annotate. And this time you're going to choose text, and you can just tell me the number. You can just write a number in there or a couple of numbers. If you haven't gone through a review yet, you don't know, then don't worry. We're going to do them all. But a few people here have gone through review, so I'm curious to see what you want us to focus on today.
I'm trying to remember what each of them are, so I'm looking on a split screen.
Okay, well, we're going to look at them in a minute. Okay, great. 6, yeah, 6 and 7 tend to be ones to focus on. Okay. That's good. We'll get started. That's all right. We'll come back for this. We're going to get out of here, and we're going to go right to looking at courses. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is bring up, here we go, our CVC rubric. All right, and then let me go back to, let me stop share for a second. My screen. There's a couple of courses, one in particular I like better than the other, and then we can also take a look at the course template that we offer as another set of examples for us today. And then let's see, there we go. Let me go back to share screen. I'm all set up again. All right, so we're going to be jumping back and forth between these two documents. So right now I have over here kind of doing the split screen thing myself, Brandy. The rubric, and if you've never seen the CVC rubric, the idea is that when we align ourselves to all these standards, we have a quality course. And research is showing us that courses that are aligned to this rubric have better student success at an increase of 4%. Okay, so it's significant. It's statistically significant. And it's our local requirement for online courses. So as of spring, any course that we want to be offering online needs to be aligned fully to this rubric. Okay. So the first set of standards we're going to look at have to deal with the unit objectives. And the idea of objectives is that we look first at the course outline of record, and from that, from our online course, if you've taken the online teaching course, we use the course outline of record to distill our objectives for our units or lessons, however you want to label that. And so those objectives are, goals, obviously, right, for each bit of course that we're giving, right? So we'll take a look at how these two different courses do that. And we want to make sure those objectives are clear and that we're using these like verbs that we can measure, that are making students do things that we can say, yes, they've done them, and this is the degree to which they've shown us that they can do that. Okay. So usually when we're looking for objectives in a course, we're looking for those to be at the beginning of a unit or a module. And we can get into, courses are organized differently. You may have a course where every week is a module and it is a complete unit. You may also have a course that maybe it's an 18-week course, but instead of having, say, 16, 17 modules that correspond to every week, you may only have 9, and each student spends 2 weeks working through one unit, one module. So everybody looks a little different. And that's okay. That's not necessarily a problem, okay? But we do expect those objectives will be somewhere in the beginning, okay? And I'm looking at a course from the modules perspective. I'm not looking at the homepage right now because I just don't want to distract you with homepages. So like, we'll look here, this is an instructor that's obviously spending 2 weeks in this, and this isn't actually a recommended way. You would say weeks 1 to 2 and then probably give us a topic, right? Let me go down here. Here we go. So it looks like these are sort of his topics, this first page here. So let's go there. I'm going to guess that's where he's having, he's putting his objectives, and he is, right? He gives us a little course overview and then gives us clearly articulated objectives. And the thing with these objectives is that they have great verbs, demonstrable verbs or measurable verbs. And in the course that we teach, you know, we look at Bloom's taxonomy, and you can just Google verbs and Bloom's taxonomy and you'll get lists. Vanderbilt has great stuff. Oh, there's a million of them. I actually like Vanderbilt a lot because I just like the graphic that they have. But Fresno has a great one with the verbs and the breakdown. But you have things like explain. So we can say, yes, has the student explained this to me, right? We can imagine many activities where a student actually is explaining this, right? Has the student, let's say, debated, right, or analyzed? Can we say at the end of this that they've demonstrated that they understand epistemology, or they've communicated ideas? So these are verbs that are based in, again, Bloom's taxonomy. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. We can take a look at that in our second half. I don't want to bore you with it if you know it really well. But that's basically what we're looking for. We're looking for measurable verbs. We're looking at these things are clearly communicated. Ideally, they're written for us, but you can also have on this page a video. This whole thing could be a video, right? And you're basically presenting the overview of the lesson and the objectives in that video, as long as they're present, right? And they're upfront and you're using these verbs, right? You're saying it in a way students understand, and you're using clear verbs that we could measure. Totally fine. And I just want to go back out to modules, and we'll just take a look at one more. Hopefully now, the other thing we want to make sure is that it's consistent in the class, right? So like 1 week I'm doing it one way, and hopefully, let me just go down farther. Hopefully it's going to look similar another week, and it does, right? And so sometimes people say, oh, but that's really cookie cutter, right? Well, cookie cutter, yeah, can be a little boring, but it's also predictable. And when we're talking about students' learning curve, when you come into a class, there's always a learning curve to understand where things are located, how that course works. We want to have as much consistency, let's say week to week or module to module, as possible, so that students know when you come in, it just feels right. You get right into the groove, right? Okay, I know, here's what I'm going to do this week. And then I'm going to move on. I'm probably going to be able to anticipate what's coming up next, even in that lesson. Okay. So that's kind of the basics of the locations of those things, the placement. The clarity of those objectives, again, when we're talking about alignment, we want to make sure they're consistent, consistently provided, so at the beginning, and we're asking students to demonstrate an outcome with them. Right? Alignment of the objectives, so we say content is clearly aligned with and sufficient to meet the learning objectives. All right, this one kind of, what, right? So let's take a look at it. When we're reviewing courses, what we're saying is, okay, so for week 3, this instructor says we're going to be able to explain Descartes' epistemology, we're going to analyze arguments, we're going to debate, we're going to demonstrate understanding of epistemology and communicate ideas. Okay, so what we expect then is that the content, and we're talking about what the instructor is either presenting themselves or the resources that they bring into the course, are going to cover these objectives, right? So we're going to guess there's going to be something, I would hope, about Descartes' epistemology, right? Like I would hope that that's something I'm going to see. And I don't have to be a content expert to know that. This is what a student would expect, right? So we're taking that student perspective. Hopefully there's some sort of assistance for students about analyzing an argument, right? And we expect to see some kind of a debate activity. Yeah, so let's see what this instructor has. Let's see if we think it's aligned. And sure enough, here's a video right on Descartes. And what's great about this video, and we'll talk in just a moment about instructions, which is one of our next standards, is we not only have a video embedded here, but we have instructions for the video. So they're not just, you know, the instructor's not just like throwing in content and hoping students know what to do with it. Just like we would say in class, they're kind of introducing what it is, right? And here's what I want you to pay attention to as you work through it. So little prompts for students. If you hand me a video and I watch it, I might not have any clue what you wanted me to get out of that, or I get something completely different that you didn't even want me to pay attention to. So this kind of a technique is an excellent way to present the content in your class, no matter what you're teaching. If you're teaching mathematics, or if you're teaching English, agriculture, same thing, right? And then this class, okay, so then this instructor also has readings, okay, that they incorporate. So not just a video, but also readings, which is great. We see a variety now, right, of ways of covering up the objectives. And here, look, the instructor, this is an exemplary element when you actually say, here are the objectives that this one hits, right? And you can see these are all of them, right? These are all the ones we looked at the beginning. So that's not always going to be the truth. You may need 3 content items, right? You might need a recording of you lecturing to them, and you might need something from Khan Academy, and you might need an article in order to capture all your objectives. Yours might look different, but this is just an example. This particular one hits all the objectives. Okay, so he's pulled in, and I also want to point out just a good practice here. You can see this was originally from a book, right? So this is fair use, just like you would make a photocopy in a class. They've put it into a Canvas page. He's used this is very minor HTML that I'm actually on Thursday going to send out through faculty and staff development, how to do a box or a shadow box and a couple other elements like lines to help you kind of break up a page a little bit. But that's really not very hard. You could even just not do that for now. If you're very basic, just get the text in there, right? And make sure when we do section D, we'll talk about what you have to do to make that accessible. But you can see this is a great way, free resource now for students completely within the course. And you don't have to worry about students, you know, buying some kind of a book that you make with all your copies, or, you know, even a link breaking, because even when we give links to things out on the web, you might want to make a copy within Canvas of that website and then just put a link to the original. In case that original goes away someday, you still actually have that text. All right. This is really an awesome thing in this class. I just want to show you, and we'll be covering this in other parts of this rubric. So first of all, I have to say this. We were just told by the CVC to no longer, the use of these great tabs is discouraged. And there's a reason for that, for accessibility. It just becomes the screen readers read all of this as one page. So this is like a monster page to someone using a screen reader. But the idea is the same. You could create separate pages within Canvas. So this person has all this nice stuff with the reading, but then they also have some basic questions. So again, to help guide the student in the reading, not required, it's just additional, okay? Advanced questions, again, not required. These are exemplary elements, okay? These are not required, but you know, people who are aligned and wanting to move ahead, this is the kinds of things you might want to consider. You know, additional resources for students. He even brings in here an additional article, and then even links the question and answer board for the whole course into this. So again, these could be separate pages in Canvas. You don't have to do this as tabs. It's a little tricky as tabs. But just kind of one cool way to think about that. The most important thing when we're talking about A3 is what you said you're going to teach. It looks like you're teaching it in the class, okay? So that's what we look for in those. If anyone is not aligned there, it's usually because we just didn't see objectives at all at the beginning, and not more so than you didn't seem to cover, you know, the objective. Any questions with just this first group of just getting the objectives up front? General questions. Okay, usually that's pretty straightforward.
Betsy, I have a question. Like,
go ahead, come on.
Do we need to give the specific objective on each and every assignment or quizzes?
Okay, so you do not. You must have it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay? You do not have to have it on everything else that goes on in the course.
Yeah, because like, yeah.
It
This
makes it exemplary, but
yeah.
you don't have to. I would say over time. And if you are, as you start to do it, I would focus on the big things first, right? So the major assessments or assignments that you have in the course. And over time, you can add them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we're really focusing on alignment, and mentioning when you can be exemplary, but all we need to do to have a phenomenal course, you just need to be aligned, right? You don't have to do beyond that, but the other stuff comes with time.
Yeah.
Great question.
Thanks.
So the next part, then, this is a bit of a hodgepodge, and this is probably where a lot of questions lie. I think Kalpani's at A6 and A7. So I just want to say again, Thursday, when I give out the tips, I gave one out this last week. I will give information on, if you want to get a little trickier with your page level, how you do things on your pages. I'll give you some basic tips for that and some HTML. If you want to get into the world of HTML, you can. It's really not very difficult. And I'll also have just basics for folks as well. So if you don't want to get into touching HTML, that's fine. Okay, so let's look first, course navigation. This one is kind of nebulous, right? Like navigation and content flow are easily determined by the user. So what does that mean? When we start a course, we want to know what's important, right? What's critical for me starting the class? And then how do I actually start it? Where do I begin? Okay. So this teacher, again, he's using all these tabs, and poor guy, this has just gone away as allowable, but that's all right. Has some good information for us, right? Contact information is important. And then he's got the start here button, right? He has the syllabus here as well. And what I would say is he already has the syllabus over here. This side, I wouldn't worry about it over here, but you could link it on the front if you wanted. He also links to his modules from here. He gives additional links, and then this question and answer. But again, all those things are probably available if we go into modules here on the side. Okay? So a good idea, if you use our, we have a template, for creating classes. And Kalpana, shaking your head, you were in our class. You should get it, when you're working with us on the online teaching course. We now give out a template. If you've taken it within the last year, you get a template. If you took it before then, you might not have gotten the template. I want to show you really quickly, if you would like our template, how to get it. So let me just, I'm going to log back into our Canvas. And this doesn't take very long. I'm just going to show you, hopefully not, with Zoom. We'll see how fast Zoom is running. And you may not have noticed this, but over here on the right, if you're on a computer, it'll be on your right, there's a start a new course button. And this now, you're allowed to make your own sandboxes whenever you want. So if you're building another course, you can go ahead and make a sandbox. Test. You can say, don't worry, you don't have to worry about the content license. That you're probably not sharing it with anyone right now. So we can go ahead and create the course. And this creates an empty shell for me. And then what I'm going to do is go out to Canvas Commons, and that's where we're sharing our template. Okay, so Canvas Commons, if you've never been there, lots of free stuff out there. Entire courses that people have built are out there. So, if there's a new class you need to build, you might want to check and see what's already been built. But go ahead and go out to Commons. This is the C with that arrow I just clicked on. And you can search for whatever you need. And again, there's a lot of grade levels here. So watch out for K through 12 if that's not something you want. If you want our stuff, go to just type in WCC. That's the tag I put on our things. And it pulls up a bunch of stuff, but one of which says here, WCC online course template. Okay, so you just click on that and you come over here. It always gives you a preview of the modules of what's in there. You come over to the blue button, import download. Now, I mean, it's going to show me every single class like I've ever done. So I have to find my sandbox. What did I just call it? Sandbox test. Here we go. So you're going to find the one you're going to dump it into, right? And then a lot of people have me in their classes as designer. Okay, import into course. Okay, so it says you've started your import. So just like anytime you've ever imported anything into a class, takes a minute or two. I'm just going back using the back button here to get back in that class. And you can see it's not quite in here yet. I'm just going to refresh it and see if anything's come in. There we go. And my home page is not set. Let me go and set my home page. There it is. There it came in. So this is just a template we give you, and it helps as well with navigation. Okay, if you like this, you can take it and use it in your class. If you don't like it, you can do whatever you like. You just click edit and you can set this up however you want. So we give you a banner, you can keep it, you can use something else. It's just generic for all of Woodland. We recommend you put some kind of a video in the front. And again, you're going to be letting students know, you know, they're in the right place, what the course is, who you are, and how they get started, right? I mean, you can imagine coming into a class, think of a subject you don't even know, like, you know, one you're just really not familiar with. Like for me, maybe welding, right? I would really need to be well-oriented to the class to even know where to get started. So what do you need to know to get going? We have here a recommendation to let students know, at least that first week, what they need to do in order to get started so that, you know, it's clear to them what needs to happen. We have programmed in here a start here button, so you can just kind of leave that coding there and that'll create that button. And then you can, if you want, put a picture of yourself. It's kind of nice for students, it welcomes them. But if you made a video, they also can see you there. And then of course your contact information, right? So again, you are free to do these pages as you wish. You may not want any of this. You might want to say, hey, all that getting started, I'm going to put in the video, right? And so I might put some words to learn how to get started, watch the video below, right? And then that way students just get going. And the idea too, when we're designing pages is to try to keep them like as clean in our design as possible, meaning, you know, it's great, it's fine to have text, but are we using headings, you know, when we're presenting that text? In this case, we're using the numbers tool, you know, to make a list look, you know, just kind of easier visually for us to manage when we look at these things. It all helps with the navigation. All right, and then the start here button, we have it set up in this particular template so that it takes you right into, this is actually the orientation module of the course. Okay. So in terms of navigation still on this one, we would expect in a class that there's some kind of an orientation at the beginning. This is a big orientation. You don't need one this many pages. We just give you all these different prompts because there are many different types of classes, right? But two things you might want to pull into your own course that align with rubric standards we'll talk about in a moment are the student support resources page, right? So this was one we update every spring. And this one we updated right before classes started too. So this is as accurate as we can get. You don't want to have to recreate this each year, right? So you can bring this in your course. And then the other one that you will probably want to make your own version of is the technology we will use page. So again, we put in there links to the most common technologies that students need and then links to guides for those. If you, for instance, use something different like a Labster or My Open Math or, you know, some other technology you want them to know about, this is the page you would edit this to include that technology on there. And then we also give you the up-to-date information on our help desk, right? So students know where to go and the Canvas guides. So students can also look up their own answers. Okay, so that's just kind of, you know, we expect then each week that there would be, or like I said before, maybe it's each couple of weeks, it depends how you use modules, but then each unit's going to have its own module. And that's going to be pretty consistent. So here's what I would say. If you every week have one module every week, you want to put that somewhere in your orientation of the course. Let's do now. Every week we have one module you need to complete. If it's every 2 weeks you have one module, one monster module, right? You need to complete. That's fine. I would let them know that at the beginning. If you have it, it varies. So you have it so that like initially it's every week you have a module, and then we have a unit that's 3 weeks where you're in the same unit because maybe you're doing a group project and there's all these different deadlines in it. Any variance of what you typically do, you want to give students a heads up. Okay, so remind them somewhere in that orientation and then announcements later on. That just helps them with navigating the course because it's something different than the pattern they're expecting. All right, so navigation is a surprisingly. So that's what we're trying to figure out. We go in there that there's consistency in the course. Oh, last thing I want to say with navigation is make sure your navigation over here in the menu is cleaned up, meaning you just show the things that you need. And I'm going to go to settings and show you how you would change that. So let's say I go to settings and then over here to this navigation tab. All right. Things that are up here are, let's say, turned on in the course. Like they're either viewable to students or we've turned them on. So something like Zoom, right? We can't use Zoom in course unless we have it up here. But if I didn't use Zoom, I would pull it down here, okay? So the things that we want turned on in the class are up here. So in this case, yes, I want my homepage, my announcements, my syllabus. I'm going to be using Zoom. I want them to go through modules, but they don't need their Office 365. That just opens OneDrive for them. Grades, yes, I want them to see. I'm not using chat in this course. I'm going to drop that down here. New analytics, only you can see, and that's a great thing to have turned on when we talk about section B. And another workshop, we'll talk about how great that is. Rubric, students can't see, so that's just for you to check them out if you want. Studio, I'll be using with the students, but I won't use Notebook. So now I've cleaned up my navigation. Just these things are going to show, but I have to make sure to hit save. Okay. Now again, if there's something you need to turn on, like you need Labster, you got to pull that up to the top and then hit save. And what this does, let me go to student view over here. So you can see this is nice and clean. I only have the things that students are absolutely going to need in the class, and there's no confusion. There's not stuff there that, you know, takes them to something that we don't even use. Okay. So that's kind of that last element of navigation. Right. Unit level chunking. All right. So let me show you. This is a great example in that last class we were in. So unit level chunking, again, we're looking at the modules view. And basically what we're looking for is each unit is based around a theme or a topic, right? So there's a basic chunk of information. You're not trying to do maybe 12 things in one unit, right? So we have chunks of, here we're talking about what is knowledge. Here we're talking about the concept of skepticism. Here we're talking about the Gettier problem, you know. So again, things are sort of centered around topics. That's one way of talking about chunking. Chunking comes from this idea called the segmenting principle, and it's that we can only take things in bite-sized chunks or small chunks of information at a time. And it's also ideal learning happens when we can pace ourselves. So again, when we kind of feed students concepts in chunks, it's just better for the learning. And the other thing that we're looking for is, you see here the instructors use the indent. So we know that this is sort of, I'm going to guess this is an overview, right, of the class. And then these are two things that support this overview, right? So he's used the indent. And actually, if I pop over to, if you've not used indent before, that's really easy to do. And in our template, we don't indent for you, so you would want to do that. So let's say here's my unit, and this discussion actually happens after they do this thing. So I'm going to indent this guy, and I just come over to the 3 dots on the side. That's called an options menu, and we're going to increase the indent. And you could see it just came in a little. And so that kind of tells me visually, this is something that supports the thing before it, right? So you can use things like indenting. You can also use things like, if I come up here to, no, the plus sign, plus. And I can also pick a text header. So if I wanted to break this up, so let's say here, I'm just going to say part 1, not being very creative today, but it adds it down here. So let's say part 1 of the class. So if the student's in modules view, they're going to see this text header. It's kind of helpful. It's kind of like a table of contents, right? And then let's say this part, and it kind of helps them pace and chunk what's in front of them, right? So we can use things like that to help further divide. I'd have to hit the publish button. Help further divide up. All right, so these are just some things that we suggest, right? That things are kind of chunked up and you're using some of these tools. You don't have to use text headers. You don't have to use indent, but you're using things in a way that make visual sense and help students take things in by little chunks, okay? So page level chunking, and Kapana, this was one of your questions, and this is a common So this instructor does a thing, he uses columns. This is a little bit of an HTML trick. You don't have to do that. You could have overview here and below it objectives. But one of the things that's really great that he's using are headings, right? So he's used headers here, and I'll show you in a moment how to do those real quickly. And it, you know, just like in a textbook, we have larger, it makes that larger font without us increasing the font size ourselves. By using headers, then we're screen readers signal to a student that they're reading a heading. It also allows a student to jump from heading to heading with the tab key, so they can scan a page like we do visually. Students with low vision can scan a page by listening to it by tabbing through. Okay, so that's a nice way. They have like a chunk of text here, and a photo. This again takes a little HTML coding, but if you just had it as you normally would do on Canvas page, that's fine too. You don't have to get fancy at all. I think the instructor was trying to do it so you didn't have to scroll through much in this course, but that's okay. It's totally fine. Like in this case, you know, you could have the video right below here. That's typically what happens in Canvas. Nothing wrong with that design, okay? And again, here we're looking at, there's chunking happening. We have a heading, we have a short paragraph, space, another short paragraph, and then they've used the numbering tool, right, to create the list. So overall, I'm seeing some white space, I'm seeing some chunks. It's not really overwhelming to me. But you know, we saw other parts of this class, let me go back to modules, right, where we have like lots of text, right? And so one of the things that, there's nothing wrong with that, you know, there's articles our students have to read, right? So he's used this little box. You can do a line, or you could just have the space, right? You don't have to get fancy. This is your first class and you just have to get this done, just do spaces. We've got headings, and we're using our bullet points to draw the eye out to certain things. Spaces between our paragraphs, right? This, I mean, arguably anything could be done better, but this isn't too bad, right? This works okay. And Canvas, the nice thing about Canvas, you can see the spacing in between paragraphs always gives a little white space. So there is some good chunking here. This looks a little funny to me. I think something didn't come through right with the formatting. So if this were our course, I might go in and try to help the instructor make sure that lines up. Unless that's the way it's supposed to be, I'd have to read it. But, you know, and he's pulling in from an original article. So there's not a lot you can do to like really jazz that up, but you can look at his pages. He even does things of putting different colors, right? So that again helps the eye. I kind of can rest a little bit when there's some differentiation on the page. Okay. So that's just kind of basically what we're talking about. Kalpana, that was specifically your question. Does that make a little more sense to you?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, so now you've seen some examples of that. In ours, let me just see, we have like a sample assignment. I'll show you what chunking might look like in an assignment description. So we give, I'm going here and edit. This is an example of instructions you might give for an assignment. So here we have headers already set up for you. And if I scroll over, you can see it says header 2, right? So if you don't know how to create a header, you just highlight your text there and you pick from your drop-down menu, right? Paragraph is always the default size. And if header, you know, you want a header, you click on there and it gives you a title, right? like a subtitle in there. And then what we're saying is you would fill this in with your information. So you could see once you fill this in, how that would kind of be chunked on a page for a student. Who then when you go back and you say, when was that, how are they grading that? Or what is required to do it? They can kind of go back quickly visually and find the answer. So that's what chunking just kind of helps our eye navigate a page well. All right. Any other questions about chunking on the page level? Effective use of Canvas tools, A7. So this is really basic. I would say this means when you have assignments, you're using the assignment tool to collect them, right? When you have quizzes, you're using the quiz tool. When you are grading, you're using rubrics is ideal. So things like that. We're just making sure you are using the tools that are in Canvas and maybe not collecting everything through email or something like that. And then obviously we want to see different use of media, right, in the class. So let's see, I'm sure, you know, what we just saw where the instructor is bringing in, you know, he does have readings. It's fine to have text, but we want to see some other things so that students have other ways of ingesting, you know, the course content. So in this case, we have a lot of videos in this class. Every unit has, I think, at least 2 or 3 videos in this case, and then a reading. You know, other classes, I looked at one earlier today. They do a lot with like an audio recording of the instructor, and then if you do audio recordings, you always want to have a transcript, right, word for word of what you said in there as well. So that's just kind of a nice way to, you know, different ways to present content. We have a lot of different information on this. So multimedia is something that you want to learn more about. We did our series before school started this year. We had we talked about studio. We did a little bit on interactive learning. So there's all kinds of stuff, right, that you can use. But basically think, am I doing not just text, right, in the class? I'm presenting things in other ways. Mm-hmm. And YouTube videos that you might bring in count. That's totally fine. All right. We talked about instructions, how those are, you know, need to be clear. And then ideally they're consistently given. So like you might want to come up with headings that we show you in the template itself. You might want to come up, you know, assignment, every assignment that I do, what are students going to need to know? Well, they're going to need to know the basic description, maybe the grading criteria and how to get assistance, or, you know, you can decide what your headings are, but it's a good idea to have them consistent. If you're going to start incorporating what objectives it covers, you might want to throw the word objective in there. You know, it's up to you, but I would say as long as it's consistent and it's easy for students to understand what's required. Learning support. So when we talk about learning support, we're saying that there's the opportunity for some individualized learning. That could be, you know, at the end of, and actually in this class, he has a good example of this, where he has the questions, you know, he has the basic questions about a reading, and then he gives you advanced questions, right? So for those students who want to delve deeper, they can go into advanced questions. For those students who want an additional resource, they can go here, and he's got an article or another video. Depends on the module, what he offers there. So if you know, especially at the beginning, you don't have to have that on everything you do in a class. But maybe you look at unit by unit, am I offering at least another 1 or 2 things for those students who want to learn more? also for those students who need another way of thinking about it. So maybe you have a great lecture explaining mitosis, but a student, you know, maybe they watch it a million times and they're just not, you know, just not getting the way you're explaining it. You could also link a couple more, and this is what we call universal design as well. And we give a few more ways that a student could learn. So maybe Khan Academy or you know, MIT, or I don't know if that's the best one, but they have a lot of free stuff. You know, you link a couple other things there for students who like, I just need to get at it from a different perspective or direction. And we've all been there, right? Like you just, maybe sometimes your friend in your dorm room that explained something to you in college that you finally got. So if you can offer a few other ways for students to learn, it helps those students who want to go in depth more or go beyond, and it helps those students who need to go over and over again. I'm getting some chat questions. I usually have a wrap-up page with additional resources. That's perfect, Brandy. Yeah, and that way you can do it by unit or, you know, by module. That's a great idea. Okay. All right. Again, it doesn't have to be everywhere in the class, but some places is what we're looking for. Learner feedback. So this will be for, oh, got more. And she's used a Padlet tool too. That's a fun tool. Yeah, I did a little thing on Padlet in the summer as well. Padlet's a fun one. I will insert that down for additional resources. That's a great idea. Okay, learner feedback. So this is where we have to survey our students, ideally twice in a semester. So once during the course and once at the end, so that we can continually improve, you know, how we're teaching. Oh, Claudia, I didn't even realize you were here. Welcome. I just saw you posted in the chat. I think he has a great example of this. I send out a video every semester about anonymous surveys, so I will be sending it out again, I'm sure shortly here this semester, but anonymous surveys, you can make them in Canvas, but technically they are not anonymous in Canvas, only because as instructors, we can actually go in and see who has turned one in and who has not. And so even though we can't say this student said these answers, technically it's not anonymous because I can go in and see who's turned it in and not. So what we do is we show you in that video how to create one in SurveyMonkey. And this instructor does it week 9, and then he does it at the very end again. And these are very simple. A lot of times people say, well, what questions do I ask? You make it as simple as possible. What you're looking to solicit is candid responses from your students. I think I hit the wrong thing here. Let me go back. Week 9. You know what? It's in his other class. This guy's class, he's got it week 9. Let me see. We have 2 different classes that the CVC sent us. Let me see. Just don't want to make you dizzy here, but I have to find week 9. Module wrap up. No, maybe I missed it in this one. Quiz discussion. Where are you? Quick survey. I just didn't read. Okay. There we go. So he just puts a page in there and links optional anonymous survey. And you just basically go to SurveyMonkey, you sign up for an account. It's really easy. So he says, what do you like about the course? What do you dislike about the course? It's that simple. I mean, if you have a specific question for students, like this, the first few weeks we did a group project. How did that work? You want specific response to a specific thing that you're trying out. You can definitely ask that. But when you make it this generic, what you get, you're going to be surprised what you get. You're going to be surprised, like students are going to, what I like, oh, I love that, I love your lectures about whatever. What you dislike, I'm still not understanding this thing, or I'm totally confused what we need to do when we're working in groups or something like that. They're going to give you feedback that you aren't anticipating. So I do suggest to keep them really open. And then his final one is basically that loose as well. So these are not, it's not rocket science to make these, and they're quite easy. You just create them and then you copy the link. So again, that video will be out soon. Just watch the Faculty and Staff Development Center, and I'll be sending that one out again. I also have it linked. I'll put this in the chat. I'm just looking for his last one here. Final survey. I have a handout I want to make sure everybody gets. If you haven't seen it before, it has all these resources that I've talked about today on them. So this is his final one. What do you like about this course? What did you dislike? What would you recommend this course to a friend? So it's almost the exact same thing. It's that simple. If we make them really hard and detailed, the students won't do them, right? So make them that simple. Okay, what I want to do right now before I move on is I want to give you, this is a handout we created to help people who are gone through course review. And if you haven't gone through yours yet, it's coming. People are getting assigned. We're doing them as fast as we can. So this handout is to help you get started. And basically what we do is we go through objective by objective, A1, right? If you didn't get A1, here's where you can go for an example, right? If you didn't get A2, here's where you can go for an example and more explanation. And then we also have videos in places where it makes sense to have videos. So the anonymous survey one should be, it's definitely in here. Actually, I think we have it aligned. Anonymous surveys come up again in section, I think C. So it's probably linked under C, but we have a lot of resources here. What I'm gonna do is share this link in the chat so you can download this for yourself if you don't have it yet. Let me just grab the share link here. Make it no editing. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in our chat, and I'll just that is the on that link. That should you should be able to get your own copy then of this document, and then again it gives you not only section by sections, also at the beginning we give you the 2 example courses that I'm showing you today. You can click on those and link directly what we're looking at today in terms of those classes. So there's something else you wanted to take a look at on your own, you could do that as well. So any questions up to this point? Your learner support. I'm hitting you with a lot. And actually the last few, and then we'll do is just take a couple-minute break and then we'll come back and we'll do individual questions. The last few are kind of just checking off the boxes, but they're really important boxes, okay? So in A12, we're talking about policies are present. And if you taken the online class, I know some people haven't taken it yet, you're signed up, others have just completed it. Some of you took it a long time ago. So we just wanna make sure that policies are present in, and we're gonna look at places like the syllabus or the orientation module of a course. And that's really the only places we expect to find them. Let's see if I can do that in this class. I should be able to find these pretty easily. So I would go to syllabus, because as a student, I would expect to be able to find, yeah, so I can download the syllabus. You can see academic support and institutional policies. There we go. That's pretty easy in this class. I can't see it. Some of these things you can see entirely from this class, and some of the things are not. But that you would think that if I click on that, I'm probably going to find those things. Also, when I download the syllabus, I expect to find it in there as well. I might expect to find it in the orientation module. In the class, and for him that seems to be this. So I would look through here and make sure that I can find, and it looks like for him that's not true. It's really just how to navigate the course, and so I would expect to find that in his syllabus. Okay, and the kinds of policies that we look for, we want to make sure you have a really clear drop policy. So in online learning, you know, we have that. In face-to-face learning, we expect to see the student sitting in the seat, right? That's how they get to be in that class. With online learning, we have to define what are the activities that you must do or complete. You must check in by Tuesday. You must post to that discussion board by Friday, and maybe do one other thing, and that you stick to that. And the students who haven't done that, you may send them a message and say, please do it by tomorrow or you will be dropped from the course, right? So it's a really clear policy. It's upfront, and that way if there's any challenge to that later on, which happens, we've seen it, you want to make sure that that one's clear. So drop is really important. Late papers, whether or not you take them, and if you do the clear timelines on that and percentages that you might deduct or whatever, that's very clear to students. And what do they do maybe if there's an emergency? So maybe you don't take late papers, but there is some kind of documented emergency. How do you proceed there? So that's really clear. It saves you headache with your student and the dean in the long run. So make sure you think those things through. Academic integrity is a good one to have in there as well. If you don't, and communication. Communication is really important. So communication on your part, here's how you can contact me. These are the different ways. These are my response times. And that's actually pretty critical when we have accreditation come in. They want to see what you're saying your response times are. And you can be, some people are like, I will always respond to you within 24 hours. And others will say, 24 to 36 or 24 hours Monday to Friday, but my weekends I'm off, and so that's important. You can say that and just be clear with students when they can expect to get a hold of you. Okay. Student services, so links to student services. Now we saw in our template that we have that page for you. You can bring that page into your course if you'd like. And the exemplary on this one, as you are going along, and you can start to, for instance, you have something that is particularly challenging to students every year, right? There's a project or a concept they do that is going to be a trip up for them. That's a great place to remind them how to get tutoring that week, right? So, contact the Student Success Center, or if you're a class that doesn't have a tutor at the Student Success Center, and we can enable NetTutor in your course. NetTutor is a third-party tutoring company, basically, that we can use. So, let Deanna Piero know in Student Success Center, and she can turn that on for you in your class. But you might want to link that again for students to remind them that they have that option in those weeks where they're going to need it. So that's an exemplary, but you don't have to do it. That's something to, I think, strive for. And then the last one's technology support. So what technology do they need to get started in this class? And then as they're going along, where would they go for help? So just remind them those Canvas guides, you pop out over here. And for faculty too, don't forget that help button. They can search the Canvas guides and the student guides for any, answers to all their questions. And there's a lot of they've added so many more videos and much more about mobile as well now for students. I have a question here. Is an ungraded survey quiz anonymous? Yeah, so Ralph, technically it's not. I would say it's not, because we can see who has turned in. Let me see if I have an example. I don't have an example set up to show you. I do when I did the quizzes. I showed people how to retrieve. I'm sorry, I can't show you right now, but if you do a quiz.
Would the students really know whether it was an anonymous or not? I mean, if it's just a survey quiz that's ungraded, would they know?
The idea is if we tell them it's completely anonymous, that they will be candid in their answers, right? So you do want to tell them it's anonymous. I would say this, it's better than nothing. I think it's fine to do. Technically, the only thing that's not anonymous is you just know who turned it in and who didn't, right? So you could just say, I'm not going to check who has done it. Just to be really upfront, I think that's totally fine. Yeah, it's totally fine.
If you have 30 students, who can sort all that out? So
I would agree. Yeah. I would agree. This is more, it's funny, Ralph, because CVC told us when I first started 3 years ago, absolutely not. You must use like a Survey Monkey, and more and more they seem to be going back to the tools that are in Canvas. They're trying to simplify things. So I would say just tell students, I'm going to treat this as a completely anonymous survey. I'm not going to check to see who did it, but I encourage you, whatever you can, provide me helps me make this a better course, right? Something like that.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
think it's okay to do. Yeah, no problem. But in the past, we were told not to do it. Oh, well. But the advice is always changing on this. So. All right, so if you guys want, let's just take let's take a break to 3:05. It's 3:01 now. Let's just take a break to 3:05 and get some stretch our legs, and then we'll come back with your questions, and we'll just kind of move through one by one, and so I make sure I can answer any individual questions you have. All right, so I'll see you in about 4 minutes. All right, we'll wait for everybody to come on back and we'll get started. Noelle, I think I lost Mary. You think she's all right?
She'll be okay. She knows how to get back on.
Okay, let's make sure we're good. All right. Noelle, do you mind if I start with you? I see you on camera there.
Sure. So what, I'm
Questions do you have? Yeah, so what questions do you have, or what are you working on that maybe we can?
gosh, this was, I didn't know this series was coming up, and thank you for your announcement today
Oh, good. Okay.
on the Canvas, because I clicked on that. I click on them. You need to allow us to like or comment.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll do that.
I checked on it and I was like, oh, that's today. Well, I can do that. And I thought, I wonder what it is. And and then I looked them up and I was like, wow, these are fabulous. I won't be able to come to B next week, so I'll have to do that out of order and see.
Yeah,
But
it shouldn't matter.
I have my question is, it's okay, like we're in week 4 and I realize I haven't put in a couple things like a link to student services and tech support. It's not too late to do that. It's always a good idea to put that in there, right?
Oh yeah, anytime. And really we're aiming for by spring. Right now we're flying under emergency.
Okay.
So if you can add things on the fly now, it's totally fine.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then also, Noelle, you can just, instead of bringing in the full template in your class, you can also, when you hit WCC, if you go to WCC, you'll see just the tech page and just the student support resources page as well. You don't
awesome. Yeah, for each of them, I can just bring in, I know how to import just specific content.
Just specific things. Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Brandy, how about you?
Okay, so I need to know the truth.
Okay.
Are you really going to review everything for spring? Because I, unlike some departments, have different classes in the spring that I have in the fall, and I'm building 2 this fall, and I wasn't planning on building any in the spring. But I can't offer what we were going to offer on our guided pathways map because of this whole closure situation, not so much the campus.
Right.
But what we would be doing off campus. So like you can see my panicked eyeball.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it, but like we have no choice.
Right. Okay.
So like, in other words, I probably will be having a really fun holiday break.
Yeah.
And that won't be a time for you guys to review. So true story, yes or no?
Yes. True. Okay. So true. In all truth, right? Like we are probably talking about the review for us as DE of like 300 classes. Like,
I know.
Is it possible? No. So what we have to do, but we are required by the state to do it.
For sure. Oh, I know.
So we're all in a really sticky situation. And how many have we done so far? Maybe 30. Like, I hate to say that. So it's a very long, for one course, it takes us, like your first time through one of these things can take like 6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least. Okay. Some classes have taken me 10 to do. So when I do all the sections, just because, there's a lot of work to do. And so, so what we're doing now is we're trying to be a little faster. We're not going in quite the depth we used to do, what we used to be required to do. We're just trying to get them done. And the truth is we're aiming for 180. So, which is still like the impossible thing, right? So, okay, Brandy, what would I say? I would say the ones that we call you up on.
Yeah.
Probably do your fall ones, honestly. That's because that's what we're going to see right now.
Yeah, so I have that early review, and that one I'm editing now because it's all the time. And so I figured that one's a huge priority. And I'm making sure that the other one that I'm doing now is going to be aligned whenever it comes up. But I only offer that once every 3 semesters. And some new classes were popped into spring. And I haven't, they're like brand new, like we've not taught them face-to-face, or so it's going to be a from scratch development.
Well, this is an interesting, so I'm having an idea as you're saying this. I mean, what we could do is have, I could do in some of these workshops, because I'm repeating these like 5 times in the semester, where we just have your rubric in front of you. You're going to do your self-check, because that's part of it, right? Is you do a self-check. Let's do the self-check as we're working through this. You can look at your course, and what we can at least say, if we have that from you, is you're in progress. So we can at least say, your spring courses are in progress for alignment. You're in the process of course review. So you've completed a self. We know there's a lot of work because maybe you're actually still building the class, right? And that's what I think what I might have to do, just so we can.
Yeah, I know we had work, but DE committee has the lion's share of what's going to happen for spring. And all I can hope, it's really sad, but all I can hope is that the chancellor's office extends our emergency status and gives us all a pass, because small, like we're a small college.
We're small,
big giant colleges. They're
overwhelmed. I mean, we're all in it. I almost feel like no matter what your size is right now, it's too much. I mean, we've increased our poker team to, I think, 17 people right now, which is incredible considering our size as a college. If we all do 10, we're not even going to hit 180, and it's hard to. I mean, we're going to have trouble doing like 6 apiece. Like so. So Brandy, what I would say is you're giving me an idea for how we're going to treat that. I think we'll just do some self-reviews.
Yeah, spring is just
for spring.
Not what any of us had hoped, and if I wasn't developing now and fixing now and move it, like I can't even think about building spring yet. Like it's not even on that list of priorities. Not that I'm complaining, because I'll be ready with a couple of modules if I need to be, but
right. So I would say just focus on your current classes, because really if we can get the extension through spring, then we can say, okay, really fall class.
Really I check fall. My memos really every day.
So what are we teaching right now? Hopefully. So good question, Brandy. I think we'll just do self-reviews then.
And so on that note though, when will that list go out so that we're all like, I guess
so
wait
Julie
to see what's going to be
the
scheduled.
Our poker lead, right? She's organizing that, and she's supposed to give us an update soon. So I'm hoping later this week I'll have more information on that.
Thanks.
Ralph, I see you next. Do you have any specific questions on this one?
Just a little curiosity. I got some emails last spring from Julie that one of my courses was going to be this peer online course review. And one of the comments that was made on this is improvements must be completed before the course is offered again. Okay. But it's kind of, it's not really clear, when you have something like student to student contact, how much student to student contact is there? It kind of depends on the students. I know it's kind of subjective, but with something like that, if they say, oh, you need more student to student contact, how do you do something like that?
How do you do that? Okay, so that is, what is that under section B, right? Student contact. So so what they're probably talking about is Title V. There was a revision of Title V last year to now it's required that we have basically collaborative activity or more interaction in our classes. So that it's not just students, uploading individual assignments, and asking us to kind of take those discussion boards to another level. So it's, I think, typically we might just have a discussion of what went on in the class that week, in the discussion boards. But looking at those discussion boards as ways, maybe you set it up as a group discussion. So that way they're interacting a little, in a smaller group, they can get into a deeper discussion in theory because they're in groups. And maybe there's something that's a little more, so I think I've seen one of your classes, like I think when I first came on board, Ralph, I think I did a review or something for you, but I haven't seen one of your classes in a long time. So let me just think, within biology, you might have something where I'm just gonna make this up. This may have nothing to do with your course, but let's say they're gonna design an experiment together, right? So like how would you test for, some concept that you're talking about? Like, how would you set up this experiment? You want to, what would your control group be? What would your variables be? And so then you break them off into groups, and they're each designing their own, I don't know if that's too sophisticated what you're doing, but and that way they're kind of collaborating. It could be a discussion. They're just doing this on a discussion board within groups, but you're situating them in an authentic experience of biology, and then they're working together kind of as a team. So that's probably what they're really asking, is for like a little bit of a team or group element in the class. That might be what they're, I'd have to look at your class to see if they're kind of looking more for something like that.
Ralph, what I do in my class, my science class, my animal science class, is I require a discussion each week. And so I give them a prompt that links back to at least 2 of the objectives. So they have to kind of go deeper and usually find information outside of the textbook. So whether that's go find an article that shows us whatever the topic is that we're talking about. And so that's half of the discussion points. And I usually have like a Tuesday deadline for them to do that initial post to the prompt. And then I leave the discussion board open through Friday, and they must interact with 2 additional minimum. I mean, that some of them do more, some of them are really into discussion for the second portion of their points. So it's kind of like an assignment, but they can't just say, yeah, I agree, right? So I have a rubric, a scoring rubric connected to it. So it's more of like, well, you might ask additional questions or provide an additional resource that is connected to the student that they're responding to, just so additional information can be shared. It's really important though on some of my topics, like when I hit kind of some touchy subjects like biotechnology and cloning, I monitor it very, very closely, because sometimes there's very personal opinions that come up, and you can delete them or edit them or talk to the student, so some of those topics I have to be very clear on the prompt. We're not here for just your opinion, and you don't need to be right in this discussion, but share the scientific evidence because it's a science class related to your stance.
Okay, thanks, Brandy.
Yeah.
Yeah, student to student contact. I have to look at section, since we're doing section A, I have to pull up section B to look at that. But student to student contact is the collaborative, and then the other piece is that can students contact each other. So even if you just have a question and answer board, a Q&A discussion board in the class, and then you link to it sometimes. So if you put it at the end of each unit or module, just remind them it's there. Use it like sometimes people say the water cooler, or I don't know what you want to call it. I don't think you want to call it the locker room. I was going to say locker room. Maybe that's not a good one. That might not be good.
I think I used the term the hallway, right? So like the
hallway, the lounge, the break room. I don't know what you want to call it. But yeah, if you want to do that, that's another way the students could, in theory, be talking to each other in the class. You can open up chat. I always warn with chat. I did chat years ago. I had chat hours back in the Blackboard days, and I did not like chat. Chat gets away from you, and people, so I don't suggest chat. If you like it, great, but I don't open the chat.
I've been trying to use the chat. Kevin Fern said it was working really well in his lit
Oh, good,
class.
okay.
And I open them at certain hours, like
Mm-hmm.
it's like an office hour kind of. So that way, if a student doesn't have a good enough streaming or access to video, or they have to go sit in their car to do this, or, while they handle kids, it's a good one sometimes for the asynchronous classes like mine. I haven't had a lot of interaction with it yet. They're only getting to some harder work, but I think that in some cases, just for simple questions and answers. So like Tuesday, one of my classes, which I've coded with colors. So today is blue. Blue had their office hour at 9:30 to 10:30 on chat.
That's great. That's great. And if it's working for you, by all means, That's a great thing to do. And then hide it, right? You like just turn it on and then you hide it again?
No,
Okay. You just
there
leave it at-
hasn't been anybody chatting in the off
Okay.
hours, really.
Okay.
They do have a discussion Q&A, which is open 24/7, that they can come in and ask a question or talk about. And then, of course, one of my classes has an embedded tutor.
That's
So
right.
they can
Okay.
either chat with her or email her. She also is working for the Rock, so she has some open hours where she's kind of like available via Zoom, and I'm available via Zoom by appointments and, you know, during the
That's
week.
great. You have a lot of different contact avenues. Awesome. How about Michelle? Michelle, any questions?
Yeah, I had put a question in the chat that you probably saw.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
I mean, I'm part-time, so I don't know how all this works, but my question was regarding the pure online course review for classes. Like, for instance, my class this semester could be synchronous. I'm not teaching it that. I'm just unaware of what this looks like.
Yeah. So these standards were made for asynchronous classes
Okay.
that we're looking at. We apply this rubric though also theoretically to hybrid. We don't have a lot of hybrid classes, so this would also apply to hybrid classes. Currently, it does not cover what we call broadcast or synchronous classes. However, that's going to change. It's something that's in DE right now that we are going to be adopting it for those classes. So, I mean, I'm just treating all classes, you know, by these standards. But, you know, you do have to think a little differently. So right now you're doing asynchronous. All this would apply as we're talking about it, right? But you would think differently if you're teaching either class hybrid or synchronous, right, with the live Zoom session. In that some of the interaction is going to be actually coming, right, the live part, but whatever's online still has to abide by these standards. So even if a lot of the class interactions happening through Zoom, anything that you're putting on, you're supplementing that class online, has to have these design considerations built in. It might just not be as robust, right, of a course as we would see with an asynchronous class.
Perfect.
The basics would be the same.
I also appreciate you. I had taken the training with Julie Brown. I think it was in 2017. So being able to see the form, like the rubric, or not rubric, but the form you could import, I think is super helpful. So I'm definitely going to take some stuff from that.
Oh, good. That template. Yeah, use the template. However you want to change it. You know, it's just there it prompts you along too to make sure you have stuff in there.
Perfect. And I appreciate what Noelle said about there were some things that I'm like, I should have included that a while ago, but I guess it's never too late.
No, never too late.
So,
Never too
well,
late.
thank you so much. This has been super helpful. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. You've been to a lot of, I feel like I've seen you a lot lately, Michelle. You've been at like a lot of workshops. So.
Well, there's so much to learn. I mean, and I am pretty, I consider myself pretty technologically literate, but I'm learning as I go, right? Like everybody else.
Yeah, and it's all changed. Every day it's changed. Everybody want to cry, like, no, I thought I knew that. No, it just changed again.
Well, when I saw your email, I'm like, wait, review? What is this?
Yeah.
And then I was able to attend this today, so it's been helpful. So
yeah, Michelle, we're gonna try to get to every course. We're gonna do our best, and if not, I'm gonna have some kind of a catch-up thing at the end where we're just doing self-reviews together as fast as we can. So
right,
yeah, we're coming. But we're here to help you. I mean, we're not here to sink you at all, right? Just as long as we get everybody in process, we'll be happy. So thank you. Kalpana, any questions?
Yeah, I have few. Yes, thank you. First question is, actually I'm teaching my classes synchronously for only one class, and I'm teaching via Zoom, and every time I'm editing my transcript before I post it. So it takes quite a lot of time. So for synchronized class, mine is remote instruction class. Do I still need to post my closed caption? I'm doing it anyway.
You do not. You do not. Can you believe I'm going to tell you that? Isn't that
Oh,
amazing?
thank
So,
you.
yeah, like it's never true, but it is true in this case because it's a one-time, we're treating it as a one-time resource that you're posting temporarily in a class, right? So as long as you have the audio transcript turn on.
Yeah, I'm just correcting it for hours before I post
Yeah,
it.
no, so just post it with the auto transcript and you're fine. The reason being, so now if this was an asynchronous course that you're going to use next semester, then
Okay.
yes, we have to clean up those captions. But in theory, this is a video we're going to throw away, right? Like this is just for this class because it's synchronous session. Synchronous is always different, right? You know, next time you're going to do it live again and you're going to just be posting. So those are just turn on the auto stuff. It's good enough. If you have a student, DSPS says this student, usually they're okay with the auto captions on Zoom because they're actually pretty good, especially if you, I would get a microphone too, if you know, if you're using one, and they're pretty good. So DSPS may be fine with that. If DSPS comes back to you, and I think Claudia's next, I think Claudia had this issue where no, they have to be absolutely accurate for this particular student. Then you would have to spend the time to clean them up. But if you haven't had that request, then no, don't just post them. Yeah, and then don't use them again. If you use them again, then you gotta clean them up.
Okay.
Okay. Not true for other classes though. Okay.
Yeah, one more question for me. Like I think 70% of my class is ready for the online peer review, but still I have to post the video lecturing, the lecture with the closed caption, but I think it will take a lot of time. So do I need to do it for all the modules or only one if I post and the others I can leave before I could submit?
Yeah. So what we would say is we would look at what you have done and we would say before we could sign off on it, we'd have to see the rest. So that would buy you some time, right? So if you do get called up for course review before you're kind of ready, we'll look at what you have, but the course has to be complete before we sign off on it. That makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, great questions.
That's why I'm taking time to submit it because it's taking a lot of time for me for the current class to do the recordings and transcript stuff. So I couldn't find time to do that part. Yeah.
Zoom, so I don't know if departments have student workers who are twiddling their thumbs, but we only have 3 student workers right now for DE. And when they have downtime, I line them up with videos to caption. But they have a lot of projects right now, but I would say departments have student workers. It's an easy thing for me to teach them how to do the captioning on these. And with Zoom, you send them, there's an edit link. You can just send them. They don't have to get in your account. They can just
it's really helpful.
Yeah, but I don't know what to do for you, Kalpan. It is a lot of work. But luckily, if you use those videos over and over again, then you don't have to do it again.
Okay, thank you.
Claudia, do you have any questions for us? Oh, you have a question here. What about breakout rooms in Zoom? Would this cover for interaction with students? Yes, so if it's a synchronous class, right, then you're doing breakout rooms. That's a great way for students to interact. But still on the online component, they still would have to have some way of interacting. But that could be, I would say, a simple discussion board in that instance because you have the synchronous class. You don't have to be as fancy maybe as we sometimes are in the asynchronous classes with that stuff. Yeah, so that is a great way. And again, for a synchronous class, something happened with my microphone. Okay, that's all right. If you wanted to, do you have any other questions for me? You can type those in there. I can pause and wait. I know you came to a few workshops as well.
Betsy, you had mentioned with the videos to caption them, which I've been doing, and I've been downloading those transcripts too, but I haven't been linking them on those pages because I kind of have like differing opinions about how that would be used, but I have them already if a student requests them. So here's my challenge, like you can control sort, right? And find the keywords and then don't watch the lecture. You're just searching keywords to answer questions. And so is it best practice to include those transcripts linked, or can we just do them upon request?
You're just giving the video without the transcript, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so they can close captions, so they can get the words if they need the words, and they can be read by a reader, but the transcripts itself, I don't know. I feel that if they're requested, I mean, I have a folder with all of them in there, send them right away. I just want to avoid the quick and easy route of using Control F.
Do they know that they can? Do your students know that they can, that's a searchable transcript? Because I think for some people they don't realize that. Okay, best practice right now under emergency. I understand what you're saying. I'll just tell you, like, right, is that we have to be as flexible as possible, right? And we give them all the resources that we can right now because these are extraordinary circumstances, and not to assume people are going to cheat and that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I think it's sufficient as long as they can get the closed caption. If they hit closed captions and it plays, then I think that is totally sufficient. I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as it's not locking them out of seeing the text.
Yeah, and like I am like ready to go if DSPS says, hey, you have a student, we need to have the transcript provided. Like, cool, I can zip file that over, no problem.
I think that's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, a related question that we'll get sometimes is, okay, if I'm recording them, then doesn't that disincentivize students to attend my synchronous session? I get that one a lot. And again, the answer to that one would be because this is an emergency, right? Like, we have to be flexible. People have children and jobs, and, you know, or don't have jobs and need to go find jobs, you know, that kind of stuff. So right now we just have to be super generous in that. But yeah, I think what you're doing is totally fine, because you're giving them the same thing. It's just the searchability that's different, which we don't have to provide. So I think that's fine.
Okay.
All right. Well, any other final questions? I gave you the handout. I hope everybody got that. It has the links to all kinds of sorts. You can kind of, you know, if you have an area that's not, you just have to brush it up. You can just do that stuff on your own. These workshops are meant for you to ask questions. So I'll be alternating, you know, Noelle, if you can't catch B till later, it's okay. These are all supposed to be standalone. And then I will put at least one recording of all of these in the Faculty and Staff Development Center, so you have those. All right, and then individual questions, I can do appointments. I'm trying to keep them to half an hour if, you know, I do have some times in the week, but you know, you're welcome to come back to workshop, like the second half of the workshop, you just want to ask a question, that's totally fine as well. All right, well, thank you guys. And I think I've got everybody for Flex too, so.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Betsy.
Bye-bye.